Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iori Folani. Hope you had a great weekend, and indeed, apologies for, a bit behind schedule, perhaps more than a bit. Anyway, we're here now. Quite a sort of eventful weekend, not all of it good. In fact, I don't even know which one was particularly good. You heard the story over the weekend, no doubt, about the crisis in Kaduna, and about 55 persons reportedly killed. You know, you might have seen the government on television as well saying that they would get to the bottom of this, and whoever was involved would indeed, face up to the law fully. In fact, the governor, as you recall, actually made it as a promise, maybe indicating to us that this is not the usual kind of thing where, after a few days it sort of dissipates. No, that they were going to get to the bottom of this. So that's on the one hand. It wasn't the happiest thing. Then, of course, there's also the problem of our minimum wage, the national minimum wage. Labour has said that it is going to start an indefinite strike over minimum wage to begin tomorrow. You no doubt have heard all the arguments. In fact, before we go on to our main subject, this is the kind of thing we'll be looking at, the whole matter of labor and solidarity, and whether or not we can afford to pay. Whether or not we can actually afford to pay. That seems to have been the argument for a while. In fact, I don't know, this whole matter, while all the experts have been talking about it for so long, Labour seems to have gotten fed up. You can actually call in case you want to add your 2 cents to the matter as we speak, because we'll take a few comments on some of those issues. Then, of course, I think we're going to be centering today on what we heard from, shall we say, the ruling party, in particular its chairman, its brand new chairman. And there seems to be this alert that there's a plot against me. It depends on what paper that you're looking at, but that's how we heard. We heard in the press that there's a plot against me. That's the way one paper says it. And another paper says that it's going to fail, that he will not succumb to the antics of critics, mainly the governors. Not that it was said that way, but if it is said that between 21 and 25 governors have their knickers in a twist, so to speak, over Comrade Oshomole's reform, bringing reforms to the party. They're saying, what jaku ye reform is that? But we all know that what it really means is that influence has been lost with this whole direct primary wave, and it becoming something of a tsunami. So it depends on, we listen to the arguments of both sides. In fact, the newspapers in front of me say that governors, Southwest, governors are scheduled to meet with the president tomorrow on this whole matter. I don't know, to see if there's anything that can be done. Oshiomhole is bringing reform into APC, the ruling party. It's not very much business as usual, which is something that Buhari promised us at the very, very beginning of his tenure. In fact, even before his tenure. Well, now Oshiomhole is coming. He's making it not business as usual, and the place is in an uproar, which is where I sort of introduce my guest, Yemi Makpaderu, who has slipped in. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for coming, Yemi.
Thank you very much.
I imagine the situation, traffic and all of that. But
my first time in 10 years.
There you go. So it happens now and again. So those three, we just had to mention those news items. But going to the last one, and I wouldn't call it a crisis within the APC, but shall we say the rumblings that are going on in APC. And it's interesting that this is happening. Remember when APC was in opposition, and from that position, they used to talk about the cluelessness of the ruling party at the time, simply because of some mistakes and some goings on. Now we have a lot of APC on APC wahala. You would have thought that you wouldn't be hearing this kind of thing APC is supposed to be about reformation. It's supposed to be about change. I don't know. And then the famous word blueprint. There's supposed to be some sort of blueprint. Why do you think we're having these crises where the party, the supremacy of the party, that's what I think is being challenged here?
Well, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for your patience. Let me say right away that it is actually not unusual that we're having this kind of disquiet in the political space.
I like that.
Largely,
I like that word.
And specifically within the ruling party.
The ruling party.
Elections are around the corner. We are going into the next cycle of elections. And so you're going to have a lot of divergence, convergence, and then divergence, and hopefully convergence of interest along the line. That is number one. That is the immediate cause. But a more profound cause of this, disquiet that we seem to be having is the fact that the ruling party, that's the All Progressive Congress, appears to be trying to negotiate a bend at this point, a very critical bend. And the timing of that change, close to election time, now compounded, the situation, in which case there was not room enough for adjustments to take place. And like everybody knows, well, most people probably know that anytime a situation of change is being introduced, there will be some unsettlings. Even those who will eventually be the beneficiaries of that kind of change may be the ones resisting it the most, because they seem to be comfortable with where they are, and they think that a change in the status quo will be counterproductive to their interests and ambition. Now, you have an Adams Oshiomhole, that's the third point now, who now personifies, this turnaround, this change that is taking place in the administration of the party itself, who happens to be a different kind of personnel from the former chairman, and indeed the previous chairman, who were more or less the transactional kind of leaders who are more conservative, who want to be amenable to things happening around them. But to have an Adams Oshiomhole who encapsulates in that enigmatic, physique, and is someone who doesn't mind to ruffle feathers, who in fact is driven by the opportunity to make a difference. Now, it is arguable now whether the difference he's trying to make is desirable or undesirable. But he made it very clear.
Yes.
It wasn't ambiguous, absolutely, about his focus for the party, which is to reposition the party, to make the party superior, And it was, if you recall, at a point in time, he even, tried to throw some people will say debt at the president by addressing some of the appointees of Mr. President, that if Mr. President will condone disrespect for his office, I will not condone disrespect for the party. Now, you could argue also that this kind of attitude will be more expected in a parliamentary system of government, where the party leader is usually the head of government. But in a presidential, system of government, I doubt how many people know who the chairpersons of the Republican Party or the Democrats, are in the United States of America. But everybody knows the president. Everybody knows who the presidential candidate of the Democrats, was. So those are the things that are playing out at this point. But I think, moving forward, that because nature abhors vacuum, where you have a president that appears to be more focused on governance and not playing politics, you actually needed a strong person, who in conjunction with other critical stakeholders will identify a direction and then fearlessly, charge that direction. So for me, it is explainable while all these rumbles are taking place. But the good thing is that it will further strengthen, the political system, in Nigeria. And at the end of the day, I think governance will be the better for it.
Well, yeah. It's all about the whole notion of party supremacy. I don't think anybody wants to speak against that publicly. Party supremacy is party supremacy. Yeah. True, people might have their ways of going about things, Omowani, and all those, networks. Yes, we understand all of that. But with the advent of this chairman and his interest in giving the party its full weight, so to speak, that, look, this is how it is, you signed up to this party. So we come back to this whole question of ideology, even though most commentators say in Nigeria it's little more than between 6 and half a dozen, it being what it is. But I think it's commendable because APC spoke about change. APC wants to be seen as a change agent. And what you've just described, I sort of analyzed, explained, there's not very much change in that. It's just that there would have been a transition from the former party to the present party. In fact, there are instances in in government now where you hear officials speaking about, yes, now it's our turn. And when they're talking about our turn, it's all about to be benefited, that kind of a thing. It's our turn to be benefited. Some people have been benefiting for so long. You begin to wonder if Adams Oshiomhole is going to have those kind of problems because never mind what the slogans are, the people, our people, when I say our people, we are Nigerians. We have a very good sense of the consciousness stream that, everybody is flowing with. And we know that maybe you don't have more than a few handfuls of people who are committed to this whole concept of change wherever it will lead us.
Correct. And of course, that leads me, to the next line of argument. I just painted a broad picture of why we seem to be where we are. But when you now go into specifics, it becomes a matter of interest and ambition. For strategists, we know there are three things basically that drive actions. Number one is concern. Number two is interest. And number three is ambition. It could also be a combination of one or two. One can lead to the other.
One you say is?
Concern.
Okay.
There are people who
then the second?
The second one is interest.
Concern, interest, and then
ambition.
Concern, interest, and ambition. I want to come back and pick it up from there because I want to take a call from Mr. George. Concern, interest, and ambition. I'll come back and we'll pick that up again. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to Mr. Mapadero.
Good morning, Mr. George.
Uncle Yori, I think it is time Mr. President takes interest in party governance. Because when crucial decision time comes, in my view, the president appears to be a little aloof from party politics.
Yes.
And it does not help him well in running the country. If the platform you used is not stable, there is every likelihood that even the decisions you are making will not be effectively executed. What is happening in Kaduna, for example, I think the president should have taken a further step. Why would a party say this is the person we want to field, and the governor says no, and it comes to be? That is a matter where I expect the president to please, call these governors to order. Because at the end of the day, all what happens in the party and the polity, it is the president that is blamed. The crisis that is happening in Kaduna now is because the party took a decision and a governor says that decision must not stand, and the people are reacting. So the president should please not stay aloof on these at these critical moments, as Yemi pointed out.
All right, then.
Then for the plot to remove Oshiomhole, it also boils down to Mr. President. the task that is before Oshiomhole requires the support of the president, especially at this critical moment. If you want to effect a change, don't expect it to be easy. Oshiomhole wants to bring back discipline to the party. You cannot equate what is happening now with what there hasn't been decision making in that party. Otherwise, people like Saraki would not have been able to hold the party by the jugular and turn, against the party, slowing down governance. Oshiomhole wants to ensure that there is discipline in the party, which is applicable to even the president and governors. And it is not going to be an easy task. So he needs the support of Mr. President to be able to carry this out. Otherwise, these governors will end up being the ones ruling, and the president will be blamed for it. So, please, those who can reach Mr. President, I don't have the power to reach him. He should please take more interest in party politics if he wants his government to succeed. That's my candid advice this morning. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. George. Interesting perspective. Maybe you touch on some of it as you explain further the concern, interest, and ambition that seems to be driving a lot of the activity that we're seeing, as opposed to our idealistic stance, perhaps, which is that, these people, they're not interested in, they're just interested in the progress of Nigeria. They're not interested, no self-interest. Let's sacrifice what we often preach to. Yeah. It's none of that.
Yeah. Well, I think George has touched on, one of the specifics that we were coming into. But just to provide, a plank for some of these discussions so that people understand why things are the way they are. When people are genuinely concerned about the situation, there is a likelihood that they are driven to take certain action to correct it. I mean, somebody says, I see so many children out of school. They should be in school. So he starts a foundation, or he says he wants to become a chairman of a local government or a governor, principally so that more and more children will be in school. That is altruistic.
Yes.
Now, it could now lead to interest. That, fine, I have achieved this. I could actually now become a governor to go into other areas of concern and so on and so forth. So, which may not be negative, right? But it is when it comes to ambition also is the height of it. People want to become whatever they want to become because they just have that. They are just. I'm just paraphrasing all of this.
Yes.
They're just being driven by an ambition to achieve a goal. If that goal is altruistic, yes, people may not bother why it's ambitious. After all, ambition is legitimate. But the concern now is when you now have a plethora of interests and ambitions, how you now coalesce them into one broad objective that will be of benefit to the greater majority of the people. That is what political parties should be all about. So people come in with different interests and ambitions and possibly concerns, but there must be a ground norm that everyone must subscribe to. And that is what Mr. Adams Oshiomhole is trying to redirect the party
and
to.
That's what's causing
it's not as if
whole...
there is no blueprint on what the party wants to do.
Okay. So thank you very much. Mohammed in Niger State, thank you very much for holding on. Mohammed?
Good morning, Uncle Yuri.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for holding on. Apologies for keeping you waiting.
No problem, sir. I just want to contribute on this primary of a thing that happened just 2 weeks ago. Because I was not happy the way the chairman of the APC is doing his activities in that Abuja. Because in a normal way, let's look at the issue of Niger State, where a senator got 39,000 votes, which is called 313, and an incumbent senator, who is David Umar, got 5,000. And they end up give David Umar the party ticket. As far as I'm concerned, it's not normal, it's not good. Oshiomhole should be able to follow the majority because, look, if we look at this, if you allow people that don't have popularity in the state to take over the party, believe me, PDP will end up being majority in House of Assembly, which will be very bad to President Muhammadu Buhari, who is trying by all means to make this country to be great. And now, Oshiomhole gave David Umar a ticket who got 5,000 votes as the chairman of the party. And my problem with the sorry to say, Mr. President, it is time for Mr. President to intervene in the issue of politics in the party. Because if Mr. President is not intervening, it will affect him if he win election by 2019. It's obvious that this man got 39,000 votes. With this person that got just 5,000 votes. It's not normal. And the other person in the other zone again, Zachary, they also collected in position to one Abdullah Sadi, who is not popular in that place. And this is very bad. It's time for Mr. President to be intervening in the politics of the party.
Okay. Thank you very much for calling in, Mohammed. Appreciate your call. Well, let's look at it, because this is something, it's a theme that Mr. George touched upon and that you said, was quite frankly, things that should be looked at on the mainstream. On the one hand, Mr. President seems to be, his attitude seems to be that of a sort of a division of labor. Look, let the party concentrate. I'm a member of the party myself. I'm not going to be leading by example. I myself will be guided by the party directions and that kind of a thing. President Obasanjo, on the other hand, for example, different strokes for different folks. You can't compare one person with another. He had, never mind his fingers, his entire wrist, right up to the elbow, were in how the whole party was run. That difference is what people like Mr. George and people like Mohammed might be suspecting might not work well for the party at the end of the day. A president, commander-in-chief, #1 citizen who stands aloof from the domestic politics of his own party.
You see, the reality of human interactions have put a lie to some academic postulations about leadership.
Yes.
As a strategist, I have often taught this in the classroom, that there is no one way to lead. Mr. President relies solely on moral suasion. He tells you how he feels, how he thinks it should be.
Which is not a bad thing.
Which is not a bad thing. And then
but it can be inadequate.
In many cases. Look, there are those who will tell you, oh, if you are a leader and nobody is following you, right? You are just taking a walk. Some will also say that if people don't follow you willingly, then you are not a leader. Look, all of these things are not true. There are times that people will follow you willingly. There are times you need to whip people in line. There are times you need to induce people with incentives. And there are times that you need to threaten them with punishment. A leader does not have to necessarily rely on just one way. If you say somebody is a charismatic leader, we are assuming that, oh, people will naturally follow him, but not everybody will follow. So for those who don't follow, if he's going to make a significant impact, have a significant impact on the outcome of his leadership, he has to become somebody else for that moment to be able to get them in line. And so I think that is what people are waiting for endlessly for Mr. President, which I don't think is going to be coming.
We'll probably return to the point. But Mukhtar in Kano, good morning, sir.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Yori. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. I'm doing fine.
Right. Let me contribute to what you are discussing now.
Please go ahead.
Yes. In the first place, Mr. President wants to be aggressive in governing the country, the good governance, especially the economy. Because the crisis that's happening in Kaduna, Plateau, Benue, and other places, I believe it has something to do with abject poverty. People are hungry, and the little money that goes around does not reach the grassroots, the common man. So idle mind is a devil's workshop. Simple thing can trigger crisis, and people will take advantage of that. And in managing the polity as it were, the president should not leave things to one or two persons. He has to be fully involved, because this is participation for all. If he has been aggressive in dealing with anybody that is trying to tamper with the policies and progress of the APC, I think that would be better. Otherwise, we are seeing the negative change. He has to change his attitude if he wants to win 2019 election. Otherwise, it is going to be a failure. I'm sorry to say that. Thank you very much.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much for calling in. And you know, it's interesting because all of this, at the end of the day, because that's the way it will be projected when it comes to campaign time, it'll be predicated not so much on how well Mr. President managed the domestic affairs of his party, even though that affects his own very standing, but on the performance. People are going to look at the performance of Mr. President. I wonder if, because when you look at the performance, by all accounts, well, almost all accounts, they're doing great. It could be a lot better, but things have improved, are improving. I know the opposition does not want to hear that, but when you look at agriculture, for instance, when you look at infrastructure and some of the things that are going on, all of it hasn't been done. But I don't know. People are saying that, yeah, Mr. President, there's a heck of a much longer way to go, but we can see that you're making progress. But people seem to now be saying that, however, the domestic aspects of it, there are situations that you can't be taught in class. And it's up to you, Mr. President, to show your versatility. After all, we've heard that whole problem about, in Lagos State, for example, without looking at one side or the other of the matter, in Lagos State, the whole matter about it was proved that performance is fine, but it's not enough. Might we be in danger here? We'll take a quick break, and then I'll come over to you for you to look at that whole matter. Stay with us, please. Okay, so welcome back, and we're looking at the whole scenario here of how is the ruling party, APC, how is it conducting its internal affairs, because it seems to be having something of an effect. The bottom line now being that there's an alleged plot to see if Oshiomhole, the chairman, can be removed from office, principally because some powerful interests are not too happy with the results of some of the policies he is putting in place. And make no mistake about it, the most important one must be this whole matter about direct primaries. That has just taken the cloak off the whole power-making machinery, handing it, and no doubt they can't be happy about that, handing it back to the people. But let's look at this whole problem of balancing the equation between performance on the part of Mr. President and keeping a ruling house.
You know, there is this saying that perception could be stronger than facts at times. And unless you play up your strength, even you may be so overwhelmed by the amount of the cacophony of noise around you that you may have forgotten that, yes, I've not done well here, but I've done fantastically. Okay. So it depends on how the ruling party is able to marshal their accomplishments. For instance, this is a personal experience. There is a large expanse of communities in Ogun State that has not had electricity for 10 years. I see it on your channel and some other major channels, or people in those communities complaining. But since last year, there is hardly a day that there won't be several hours of power. To them, this is the best of times in the last 10 years. Now, that may be isolated, but it's also possible that yes, it is replicated in other areas. And when I drive around also, I see more of public power now, to the extent that people even forget to switch off their security lights and things like that, which is even one of the challenges we have. we are not producing so much, but we are wasting so much. Now, the ability or inability of the government also to manage people's expectations is important. I normally try to draw a parallel between our president's inauguration speech in 2015 and President Kufuor Addo's inauguration speech, just about less than 2 years ago. President Addo of Ghana made it very clear in his inauguration speech that it's going to get tougher before it gets better. That already prepared the mind of the people. Now, electioneering is over. During electioneering, people will promise everything that they think should be done. But it is clear that not everything is achievable within a particular period of time. So that is a major area where...
And it's fair game for the opposition, even while knowing what you've just said, to still be having a go.
Legitimately
okay.
so.
Yes.
Legitimately
yes.
so. Even the ruling party today did the same for them to get the power. It wasn't as there is no government that won't be doing anything, even if it's just paying salaries. After we now know that non-payment of salaries can cost you, governorship seats.
Okay, Yakub has been on the line. Indeed, apologies for holding you up, Yakub. Good morning.
No problem, sir. Good morning, Chief Joy.
Thank you for calling in. Good
And
morning.
good morning to Mr. Amakwadeo.
Good morning.
To me, Chief Joy, let me begin by saying that the Mr. President's speech during the inauguration in 2015, as far as I'm concerned, that statement still ought Mr. President up today. One of the statements is that I can work with anybody. Do you understand? Because I can work with anybody, give room for some power that being, quote and unquote, to hijack the Senate and the House of Representatives that can work together with Mr. President in order to achieve goals. Coming to Adam Oshiomhole issue. Yeah, you see, in this country, I really give kudos to Adam Oshiomhole because for me, I didn't see that the party had the kind of chairman that he is before, since the inception of the party. I don't think that we can find ourselves in this kind of situation. Reason being that, look at the Kaduna, for example.
Yes.
If Mr. President leave the party alone for Adam Oshiomhole, I don't think it is good. But I will say that Mr. President needs to work together with Adam Oshiomhole to achieve a lot in the party because some governor, I repeat, some governor are just a small god with small letter G because they want to dictate the pace for everybody in their various states. As far as I'm concerned, as far as the infrastructure is concerned in this country, there is a lot of improvement in infrastructure. But if the infrastructure is going on, and then Mr. President does pay nothing more or less than in the party hierarchy and then in the party politics, it's going to affect a lot of things in the party. Because if you travel from Sango to Abeokuta now, the road there is in ongoing infrastructure. In fact, I'm happy that I'm applied that road for now. The road from Ogun State to Ibadan, it's ongoing, almost finished, but I have to say all those things. Mr. President needs to play party politics because all these governors, I'm sorry to say, they are really problem of the party. That is the truth. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much.
I think I agree with Yakub, and it's still in line with the two previous callers. Now, let us take it that the Mr. President is incapable of descending to the arena of dictating what happens or what does not happen in the party. There is another leeway for him. And that leeway is to give 100% support to the chairman of the party who is trying to do this on his behalf. And sincerely, if this works, it can even be a template for how to run a presidential system. When you have, you see, the initial problem I saw, just like when you have a couple, husband and wife, spouses, who possess the same traits and characters, usually it doesn't really work out. But when you have, the man who is quiet and the wife who is like concerned about what, there will be some balance because it is what I don't have that you are meant to feel in my life. If you are coming with what I already have, it's going to create problems for me. So you had President Muhammadu Buhari and you have Anodige Oyegun, a diplomat, ambassador, gentleman, palmstick. They were not going to get the party, any further than where they got it until Oshiomhole came. But I think it's a matter of time. Let me say this, that there is no way Oshiomhole will be removed. Nobody will contemplate that. But I think people are just using it as bargaining chips.
To show how badly they're hurting.
Yes.
This man is hurting us.
The man also has some challenges before him. Yeah. Now, he said we're going to go into primaries, on one hand. On the other hand, there are those who seem to have done very well by remaining loyal to the party in the face of, intimidation, inducement, and the rest of it. I said, oh, we're going to reward you with automatic tickets. So how do you now reconcile both? Without the governors in those states, are concurring to what the party's intention is. And that is why you have these problems where senators and House of Reps members who lost primaries still eventually found their names on the list submitted to INEC because of the commitment that the party already made to them.
And in terms of what we're talking about right now, this whole matter about the apathy, apparent apathy of Mr. President to quote-unquote mundane, seemingly mundane matters of party politics. I think you recall that early, following from Mr. President's posture about don't care whose ox is God, we will step on toes, etc., in terms of the fight against the rot and the filth. And then very, very shortly after he came into power, the same Mr. President was constrained by his advisor, say, sir, the law, sir, rule of law. You can't say that. Oh, you can't take this action. We must be seen to be doing things. Well, the man who came in with such fervor of, I got a problem here, I got to deal with it. Sir, you're not a military commander anymore. You are now a civilian president, and so there are all of these strictures. I wonder the extent to which all of that sort of left Mr. President in a different... But, oh, I forgot, as I was rattling on Mazi Okoroafor, I'm going to come back to you on that very point. Okay. Mazi Okoroafor, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, I guess, in the studio.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Honestly speaking, sir, the Oshomole should stay. Why was Oshomole? Oshomole have to stay because the governors, the way they dictate in their state, they should be stated on the national level. It's not happened that way. Because you cannot eat your cake and have it. They should allow the chairman to do his job. The Oshomole coming to the party there was to do to restructure, put the house in order, and make sure we have internal democracy. They should take away by a governor sit down in the state, dictate who will be senator, who will be House of who will be House of Assembly. That's not democracy, and it's not politics. When you talk about democracy, you give everybody a free hand to run the show. They cannot come from stage. Talking about this to pay salary, you say that they say they don't want. And what do they want again? They connect their votes, nobody's challenging them. And they will say there's no more. You see problem happening in different states. The governors should mind their business, do their state affairs, allow Oshomole to do his own national work. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day, Lagos.
Thank you very much, sir, for calling in. So going back to the whole question about Mr. President, yeah, people have observed he wants to be above the fray. I wonder if that might have some salutary, the situation I described, might possibly have some salutary effect on the seeming attitude of Mr. President concentrating strictly on governance and getting on with his party in spite of the unruly house that is developing.
Yes, I think it's a major problem, in terms of characterization. Before Mr. President came to power, he was perceived by many as a very strong man.
Yes, no nonsense kind of a guy.
No nonsense kind of a guy. But the reality now is portraying Mr. President as not being as strong as people thought he was. The case of Shehu Sani is very, very demeaning, and I think it diminishes the status of the president, because obviously the president gave his word.
When we talk about Shehu Sani in
Kaduna State,
yes, in Kaduna State,
yes,
he's the preferred, the preference of the party, but
the governor succeeded in making the party capitulate.
Yes, so
by not submitting Shehu Sani's name.
Exactly, and how does that is the kind of
thing. And everybody saw this coming.
Yes.
That the governor of Kaduna State was, vehemently opposed to Shehu Sani. And he ended up having his way against possibly the wishes of Mr. President.
Eze is in Bonny Island and wants to join the show. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Uncle Yori, good morning.
Thank you very much for calling in.
I have listened to some of the callers. We have gradually started to call on Mr. President to start deeply hand into running of party. You remember when Obasanjo was president?
Yes.
Most Nigerians were averse to the way the president was meddling in the affairs of the party. Now we are calling on president
to start looking into the running of party. The truth is that Adams Oshomole should not actually not be blamed, because initially the party should not have said, yes, any state that likes, let them go and do direct primary. If the other state, if you like, go and decide whether you do consensus. If there should have been a unified, the party should have taken a unified position.
Yeah.
If the parties were to do direct primaries, yes, every state go and do direct primaries. Adams Oshomole knew who our governors were, and now say, okay, the any party that likes to go and do direct primary or indirect primary. And that is the beginning of this problem. Another problem Mr. Oshomole has is this fire for fire. Anyone that talks, he gives it back, and some level of flippancy. He is the problem. He should be firm, because if he wants equity, let him do equity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. Eze. Again,
I think I actually sympathize with Mr. Eze's position,
argument.
Because again, we forget so quickly. Now, people condemned Obasanjo for being brash, but then we are saying also now that Mr. President Buhari is too unconcerned.
Sorry, sir.
But then there is a middle point.
Obasanjo could have been as brash as he wanted. But in terms of whether it was his fingers, his hand, his wrist, or his whole elbows in the running of the party and how the direction of the party, President Obasanjo made no apologies for it.
Absolutely. I mean, you know how many chairmen he had.
How many he dealt with. The one that sticks in my mind is after the pounded yam meal, he still went and stuck a knife in his back.
Yeah, well, and that is why people say there are some people, when they hug you, it's not yet to hurl. Now, President Buhari, we are not saying President Buhari should become a dictator. What people are saying is that he should be, you know, reasonably involved
in his party affairs.
In his party affairs and in all affairs as well. You see, you cannot just be a strong man in one area. Yes, there may be a predominant, feature of a man, but he must not be found wanting in others. It just, when you want to sit for school start, it doesn't matter whether you want to become a lawyer, you want to study languages. Everybody must do English language, everybody must take mathematics, and everybody must take one science subject. Not necessarily for you to pass, but for you to have an idea of what even the basics are. And so for a leader, it's important that you may be predominantly strong as a charismatic leader, for instance, but you should also have an element of dictatorial tendency when the need arises, so that I can wield it.
So actually, Yemi, I put it to you, as neither of us is a lawyer, but I put it to you that you're saying Mr. President himself is remotely the cause of this problem that we have, ever so remotely.
Remotely, yes. I agree with you.
Okay. There's someone else on the line. Comrade Ayo, good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, Uncle Yori.
Thank you very much for calling in, sir.
Good morning to your guest there, too.
Good morning.
Uncle Yori, you see, the chairman of APC created the problem we have now. If you want to set a pace, you have to be definite about what you want to do. If it has a definite statement that a direct primary should be across the board, we won't have the kind of problem we have now. Look at what happened in Osun. People expected that an indirect primary will be conducted. Before you know it, 2 weeks, a week to the primary election, they come out with the theory of a direct primary. And it divided the party. It almost cost us the election in Osun State. So, see, we are asking the president now to wade into party affairs. We are saying because it's this, it's that, it should be dictatorial. Now, if he starts dictating the pace now, it is we that will now come out and say the president is too authoritarian, the president is this, we are having a president who is saying, let us follow the process. Yes. Let us lay a very strong structure so that in coming days, in coming year, we will have a better structure. People will know. Let me tell you, after this election now, in 2023, I I must tell you, we will have a direct primaries across board so that we will get power back to the people. The governors are just too dictatorial. See, they will sit down in their office and write names of will-be candidates. They are preferred candidates. But that is getting away gradually now. And we are going to get there by God's grace. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much for calling in, comrade. As you said, the Ghanaian president said, it's going to get worse before it gets better, you know, inter alia. And I wonder if some of the things that we're seeing, but in terms of definite statements, Mr. President has made a few that have become less definite as we have gone along, maybe allowing for largely what I spoke about, that Mr. President might have been angry about the extent of the rot in the country before coming into office, while he was still trying to get into office. It was third time lucky for him. But then once having arrived, maybe his fervor, by the time the whole legal team, judicial team, experts come in on the whole matter, Mr. President, you know, paying attention to the fact that he doesn't wear his uniform anymore. Now he wears civilian clothes. You know, is, as he said, okay, if that's the way it goes, it's going to take us longer, but let's go. But I don't think Mr. President has taken his eye off the ball. It's just that we're not getting the kind of results we wanted as fast as we wanted them.
Yeah, because we operate, you know, in the democracy now. And the president knew that ultimately he's going to require the support of all these tendencies within the party. So it is good enough that the president is not associated with just one arm of the party. He is seen as the father of all. But there are situations where hard decisions have to be taken. And when they are taken, even those who lose out will respect that decision, because they know that unless the president saw it very important, it ordinarily does not interfere, it doesn't take sides. But it is not at all times that we say go and resolve it the way you want to do it.
Which is what Mr. President seems to be known for now. So I don't want to keep Divine waiting much longer. Okay. I'm very sorry for interrupting you. Okay. Good morning, Divine.
Yes, good morning, Chief Onkuyere.
Thank you very much for calling in.
And good morning to your guests in the studio.
Good morning.
Yes, I want to say that the issue of Oshomole is something that you should call to order. There are some certain things you do. If people begin to say what you are doing is wrong, don't look at your position. Don't look at your ego. Come back, retreat, and examine the area they are in. Because you cannot tell me that some people who won primary election in the field, their name is being changed, and you now say that you are fighting for democracy, or you are trying to play politics. You see, no matter what, nobody is a saint. But there are some certain things we cannot do. If you look at it, ask yourself, is this thing right? If 100 people say what you are doing is wrong, come back and examine yourself. That is the issue of Oshomole. I will be very happy if Oshomole is removed, or else the party will remain the way it is. The crisis will keep on coming more and more. And I will be happy because I voted for this government. I campaigned for this government. The government promised us a change. When they get to the government house, they change the promise.
All right, then. Thank you very much for calling in.
No, let me just say this right away. The last caller is assuming that there is a preponderance of opinion that Adams Oshomole is not doing the right thing. No, that is his position, and possibly people he has listened to. It is left for a leader. Look, when you are a leader, you shouldn't be concerned about consensus, unanimity.
I think Divine was speaking from the point of view of opposition. Again,
that's what I'm saying. Yes. But many of us also fall into such temptations. In my family, if everybody says things in a way, I want to assume that's what every family is doing or saying.
Okay.
But I'm just limiting it to where, you know, I'm located at that particular time. Now, but for leadership is not about unanimity. It is about, number one, doing the right thing. And in the case of democracy or political leadership, it's the question of the majority. Unfortunately, it could be by just one. That's why some people will say, all you need to win an election is 50% plus one. And then you have won. Look at the latest justice of the Supreme Court in the United States of America. It was passed by Senate by just 2 votes.
So
if one person had abstained from voting,
Majority
and the
is a
other,
majority.
it would have been hung. But then that didn't mean he would not. He was immediately sworn in.
Okay.
As Justice of the Supreme Court.
I guess it's about power and influence and being used to the way it used to be. James in Ijebu-Ode, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, go right ahead, please. Thank you for calling in.
Yes. I found the topic very interesting. You see, removing Oshiomhole at this time is not easy. It's not an issue because a lot of us have been following Oshiomhole for some years now.
When we're talking about removing Oshiomhole, I don't know. There's nobody, they're just critics. I don't know that Oshiomhole can, quote unquote, be removed like that.
Okay? Anyway, as far as I know, doing that at this time will not all go well.
Okay.
It's on ground.
Okay.
You see, the Bible slightly told us that righteousness is just a nation, sin is a reproach. It's not these governors that are anticipating the question of Oshiomhole cannot be kept from right to the left. Look at what happened to say, for example. How can somebody just wake up one day and tell the citizenry that this is the list of all the candidates going through the normal procedure?
You know, I hate myself for what I'm going to do. I've got to interrupt you, and it's because of time. We've completely run out of time. I would have liked to hear a bit more from you, but I don't have more than the 30 seconds left for Yemi to just sort of wrap up. So sorry about that, but next time, hope we can be longer.
Well, I think what we're experiencing or what we're witnessing now is typical of any situation of change. There will be resistance. And so it will depend on the focus and the conviction of the leadership to drive home the change agenda. And eventually, those who are even dissenting will key into it.
And Mr. President needs to become a bit more involved in the affairs, the domestic affairs of his party.
If he can, he should.
If he can. Thank you very much, Yemi. Mr. Yemi Makwaderon, strategy and governance expert. As always, we value your analysis. So that's our program. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.